What's up, pod pals? It's your buddy Adam, and you are checking out Podcasting Business School, the show where I teach you how to love your podcast like a hobby, but build it like a business. We are doing a podcast audit today. If you are in the market for podcasting tips on podcast growth, podcast engagement, podcast monetization, you are in the right place, pod pals. And I've got my buddy Scott Edwards from the Stand Up Comedy, Your Host and MC podcast, a comedy podcast, one of my faves.
Oh, wait.
In the house. There we go. There we go. All right. So, Scott, you're somebody that I've been connected with for a few weeks now. I really enjoy your vibe. I think that your show concept is awesome. You started doing some IG reels. I showed you how to do some reels. We did some work together there. So now you're an IG reels ninja. Tell me a little bit about who your ideal listener is for your show. So with a comedy podcast, with a stand-up comedy podcast, is this for people who enjoy stand-up comedy or people who are trying to learn stand-up comedy? A little bit of both. Who's the ideal listener here?
So I'm a little bit older guy, and I owned a chain of comedy clubs for over 21 years. Got a chance to work with the best, Jerry Seinfeld, Jay Leno, Robin Williams, you name it, Bob Saget. And that ended in 2021 when I sold it and retired at the young age of 44. And now I'm kind of retiring again for the real time. And I went into podcasting because I don't know if I told you the story, Adam, but I wrote a book. I spent about 2 years writing a book on 40 years on the fringe of show business and my experiences with all the celebrities and all the stories. I mean, I got a book full. And when I got done, I showed my wife, and she just goes, "No one's going to read your crap. Nobody cares." And she goes, "You ought to do a podcast." And I'm like, "What's a podcast?" Right? I knew what a podcast was, but I was not a listener. So this was back in 2019. So I did some research, dug into it, hooked up with a couple people that taught me how to do a podcast. And in early 2020, before COVID, I launched my podcast, and it is a tribute to those 40 years in the business. And the shows trade off, Adam. Every other week, I interview a professional comic that used to work for me. Most are still working. Some are retired. And the other week, I'm sharing material because I did TV, concerts, thousands of stage shows and radio. I have a ton of material from the 80s and 90s of these professional comics when they were just cutting their teeth. You know, you get a chance to hear Bob Saget or Dana Carvey before they were Bob Saget and Dana Carvey. And that's what the podcast is. Now, my audience is anybody that enjoys a good laugh, because what I found is comedy is evergreen, that a joke is funny from pick a date, 1984. If the joke's done right, and these are all pros, it's still funny today. You know, occasionally there's some reference to Ronald Reagan or something that dates it. But generally, funny is funny. And so my audience tends to be over 40 years old because they remember and recognize the names of the interviewees and the comics on the show. But really, I have listeners all over the world that just understand that stand-up comedy is a terrific art form.
So I'm a huge fan of stand-up comedy, and one of my pod pals, Tom Singer, got me into doing stand-up. I did stand-up comedy for the first time in 2019, the summer of 2019, at a dive bar in Austin, Texas called The Love Goat. And I won't tell you there was a picture of a couple of goats as we walked in. I won't tell you what they were doing. But I like the idea of podcasters dabbling in stand-up comedy for the ability to kind of hone our craft of speech and trying to elicit a response from the audience. I like that a lot. So I think, there's a lot of unique ways that we could take this show. Now, when you fill out information for me, I asked you for your largest podcasting obstacle right now. And you're like, connecting with the audience. I need to, get connected with these people. So we had talked, you attended a webinar that I was doing with Ali Melody last week.
Really good, by the way. Thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. And shout out to Ali Melody. The we talked on there about creating some sort of a community engagement lead magnet for you and for your brand. I really like the idea of you having a monthly get together where like you could have, like, you have so much experience in the industry. And I assume like you're the guy, like if these comics are performing in your bar, like, did you have any say on like who gets booked or like what talent is being presented and things like that?
Oh yeah, I often joke that Northern California was stuck with my sense of humor, because if I didn't like somebody, they didn't work in Northern California. So I would go to San Francisco, which was a real hub for comedy, in LA, the Comedy Store, the Ice House, the Improv, and worked with their owners, Mitzi Shore, Bud Friedman, and others. And I found talent that made me laugh. And then I would bring them up to Sacramento, where my clubs were in Sacramento and Stockton, California.
Nice. Okay. So I see your community engagement lead magnet. You can serve aspiring comics that are wanting to hone their craft, but also people that enjoy stand-up comedy. So I feel like it could be the full spectrum, where once a month you've got Scott's open mic night for aspiring comics, and it's just like a bar open mic night, but I want you to provide feedback as, like, of course you could have a panel of experienced comics, and it's almost like an American Idol type of a feel. Like you've got the three people and you, and like you provide feedback off of these, 2 or 3 minute bits. And I think it'd be really interesting content. It would also, it'd be great for those aspiring comics, because you are basically going, if you were trying to get into my club, this wouldn't have flied. Like, I'm not going to book you because, or I would book you because, or if you change this or that, you've got a lot more potential to get booked. And like, going off of that, when we talk monetization and things like that, like you could have a getting booked boot camp for comics, for stand-up comics, like what you should and should not do from somebody that's got 40 years of experience of booking comics and paying them to perform. Like, there is some serious leverage with that. And I think that would draw stand-up comics in, but then you could also have, audience members, people that are just fans of comedy, that could come live and provide feedback as well. Maybe you have an audience member that's a judge, and then 2 professional comics. So you get both perspectives, like, oh, this was funny, this wasn't funny. Any of that idea hitting you and feeling good?
Well, it was what you mentioned with Allison the other day. And just, because I'm a man of action, I've already put together something like that. So just so you know, Adam, I have a clubhouse room every Monday at 6 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And on that room, my stage is filled with 2 working professional comics, 2 comedy writers, and a professional TED level speaker. And each and every week, we talk about adding humor to podcasts, the value of connecting with your audience through humor. And so right after the webinar that you invited me to, I met with them and said, man, I got this great idea that I got, from Adam. And I'd already told him about you. And I said, we should do kind of like an open mic. But, one of them thought it was a competition. We go, no, we don't want it to be a competition. It should be like an open mic where we're there using our decades of experience. Between all of us, there's over 100 years of experience on stage. And I come from the producer's point of view. So that's a little bit different. There's a lot of training courses and books on comics, teaching comics. But I think if you want to make a living doing stand-up comedy, you want a director/producer's point of view. Looks like you lost me. But the point is, I did listen to you and Allison. I have discussed with them putting something together, and I think there could be something as soon as late September, early October. What we weren't sure about was, should we test it out on Clubhouse and kind of pitch it that way, or try to do, I'm not familiar with StreamYard, but I think we could do like a Zoom thing.
Yeah.
One of the challenges of anything like this, Adam, and is that the audience can't be heard. And of course, comedy is all about that energy and feeling the love from the audience or the hate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so one of the downsides of this kind of format is there's not that interaction that really breeds life into stand-up comedy.
Okay, so that is an interesting challenge with this format. But okay, so let's unpack a few of the ideas they had there. I would definitely test it on Zoom. When you are doing that Monday night room, I would be promoting this thing. I really like the idea of having 3 to 4 weeks of you talking about this on Clubhouse, talking about it on your show to promote,
that's
drive
what you
people
mentioned,
to it.
yeah.
Just to have some lead up time. So it's not just springing it on them, because you may be disappointed with the turnout if it's just like, hey, everybody just come if you can. And then they've got 1 day of notice and they don't show up. Have a few ringers that will show up. They owe you $5 and you relieve them of their debts and go, hey, just show up. I just need a warm butt and a seat. So just kind of like game planning around that. Now with the audience, this is where it could get interesting, where I would love to see you bring in just comedy fans. Like, I mean, you can let 10 people in or 20 people into the Zoom room that don't want to be comics. They just love comedy. And
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you have that many people and have mics open so people can hear them?
Yeah. I mean, it could get a little crazy. I wouldn't have an open, mics just hot. Everybody's mic is hot, but you could, just for the comics and for video perspective, that you could have them do something. Like if they are laughing, maybe they do something with their hands like this. And that means that they're laughing. So you get that visual stimulus of like, you're getting a reaction.
Oh, that's actually a genius idea, young man.
On Zoom, there are little like emojis that you can put on the screen. So I think there might be a laughing one. I know there's like a thumbs up. There's a wave one. I don't know, but I think there's like 3 or 4. There's a heart one, so that you could say, hey, if you are enjoying this, hit the heart emoji every time that you laugh. So we get that visual feedback so that we know you're laughing. And then maybe you have your panel there to provide feedback, but then I would pull a couple people up out of the audience that are just comedy fans and go, what did you like? What did you not like? This could be like some of the best input that they get the whole time, is just like the person that they're actually trying to make laugh out in the audience, the casual listener or viewer. I think that would be pretty interesting. So that's how I would test it out. And I think it would be really interesting, man. Like I'd love to attend something like that and check it out. I've been working on a few new bits too. I might be able to get up there and put it out there, but I see what you're saying about getting feedback. That's the whole point of stand-up comedy, is eliciting that response. So coming up with a way, like a visual cue or something like that, I think. And then if you record it and put it out as an episode of your show, in like, the person does their bit, you'll do the recap, and you'll need to let people know that are just hearing the audio, like, we got a ton of hearts on that one. It seems like people got a good reaction. Hopefully you guys were laughing at home, and kind of just let people know whether it went well or not with the live audience. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, I've been jotting down notes. You have some great ideas. So 2 things. First off, I didn't know you had any interest in stand-up, so I'll send you a free access to my online comedy course, which includes my one of my 2 books on how to be a stand-up comic. So I'll send that to you backstage. But I like the idea of the jazz hands or something, because it's visual, or they could even applaud.
Yeah.
But the emojis is still somewhat lagging. But I do like the idea of getting some audience people involved and having the professionals offer advice. I will say, and one of the things that I told you was my problem, what's interesting about stand-up comedy, because it is pure entertainment. It's so funny, Adam, because so many people like you are smart and are making some money through podcasting and through your trainings. And you'll say, find the pain. What's the pain that the audience needs you to fix and help with? Well, I'm entertainment.
Yeah.
There's no pain, it's all about forgetting the world and just relaxing and focusing on comedy versus your bills and work and stuff. So maybe the pain is life.
Well, yeah. Like you look at that, like quarantine and pandemic life, and people haven't been able to get to comedy clubs. If they enjoy stand-up comedy, actually not watching on Netflix, but actually getting to interact like that, I feel like that's a pain point. And honestly, like a quick monetization idea. I would maybe, if they're not a stand-up comic, you have invites for stand-up comics and things like that, but maybe you have a certain ticket price for 20 people in the audience or whatever. And maybe it's $50 or $20 or whatever. And or maybe you have VIP tickets where they're guaranteed to get on stage and be able to ask or provide some feedback, like different levels. But I would have a certain percentage of that is taken as profit, and then a certain percentage is donated to a charity. So each time you do this, we're like, hey, we're raising money for XYZ charity. Make sure you show up, get your ticket, whatever percent goes to that charity, and the other percent feeds Scott and buys some hamburgers or like something like that. And, like have some fun with it. Like the other 95% goes to Scott's wife or like something. I would, have some fun with that. But
well, I'll interrupt you and say I do love that all these Zoom and StreamYard images are from about the shoulders up, because if it was the shoulders down, you go, he don't need no more burgers.
And then we'd realize that you're not even wearing pants. So like that.
Well, that's the only way to be funny, right, Adam?
I spring that joke on people sometimes when I'm interviewing them when we talk about like the power of podcasting. I'm like, and the best part is I'm not even wearing pants. And like, it's 50-50, man. Some of them it weirds them out. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that did not fly. And then some people are like, oh, that's hilarious. And then I start to try to stand up like, no. So anyway.
Well, no, but those are great ideas. And you and Allison kind of got me thinking on the live interaction of an open mic or something, and trying to give back and help the young comics today, especially those that can't get out and get the stage time that is so important to becoming a professional. It's all stage time. And during COVID, that wasn't possible. So how are you going to hone your craft, hone your jokes? And so we could offer that, but you've given me some additional ideas that would make that more promising and valuable to the comics. Now, the only downside to my industry is that generally my comedy school and my books on comedy and stuff, which I give away generally, but they're also available on my website. But the people in that industry are poor. It's like that whole starving artist thing. I could be helping 50 different comics, and it would be difficult for them to scrape together $1,000 between all of them. So the good part is I'm able to help them and help them move their career forward, but it's not like reaching out to somebody famous or somebody rich and saying, hey, I can solve your financial problems, or I can solve your HR problems by doing this or this. And it's a huge wake up call, and boy, they're like just throwing money at you. So it is a little bit of an interesting aspect I have working on. After talking to people like you that inspire me, I have a huge business background. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've opened over 12 companies, everything from an insurance company, travel agency, and chain of comedy clubs to I owned a submarine and had a beach shack in Hawaii. And all these businesses have taught me a lot. And I'm in the process of writing a book on that so that I can speak to, small business owners and help them with the challenging waters of small industry. But it is the comedy that really drives me, and that's what I've invested the last year and a half in. And Adam, you've just been such a tremendous inspiration. I'm so proud to be pod bub.
Pod pal.
Well, I'm your bud. I'm a little bit different than your pod pal.
Now, okay, you just gave me another idea, Scott. The ideas are flowing freely here. So
that's what we want.
Earlier, you mentioned the competition. Maybe there's something there, because if you really want to help these starving artists and like get something going and make impact there, And I also make a little money, at least so that you don't have just an expensive hobby with this show. Like that's going to pay for itself. Like that's going to be important.
That would be great.
So we sell tickets to these monthly meetups, and there's 12 per year. So there's a 12 round thing, or maybe it's 6 months. I don't know. We can figure that out. But you are going to sell tickets to the average Joe listener that wants to just, chime in. And then you take a percentage of that. Obviously you get your bills paid, but a percentage of that goes to charity. A percentage goes into the prize pot for the competition. And at the end of the competition, whether it's 6 weeks, 6 months, 12 months, whatever, the winner takes the comedy scholarship from whatever, like that goes to them, or maybe you divvy it up in different ways, but you have your panel doing some sort of scoring. Maybe you put it out there to like 1 or 2 audience members. If they want to be a judge, a VIP judge, they got to get a VIP ticket, and then they get to be a part of the actual show itself where they're picking the winner. So like everybody wants to be Simon Cowell. Like this is your opportunity to be Paula Abdul and judge people, be judgy. So
people like to judge.
Yeah. So that could be a thing where a certain percentage of that is going to the comics, a certain percentage is going to a charity, a certain percentage goes, to Scott's Burger Habit. And then that's, the thing. So I feel like something like that, because that's going to keep people tuning in and listen. I think this is going to be great content for your show, because people start rooting for somebody, like, the January winner was Adam. And then, later when you do like the Battle of the Champions, the one big blowout show, and maybe that's a whole week of episodes where it's like 5 episodes in 1 week. It's like the finalists, and they're competing, the judges talk, and then maybe they get longer time or whatever. I think that would be just fire content, man. I think I'd be listening in, because it's that reality TV aspect where all of a sudden there's a thing I'm rooting. This is my favorite person. I think they're the funniest. That's who I would vote for. And then maybe there's some sort of online voting system. I don't know. With your podcast, you want engagement, have some sort of a competition where they can, come in and vote on a
right. Maybe that'll encourage
like
them. Yeah, that can encourage them to email or direct message me, so that I have, 1, I can collect information and know who my listeners are, and 2, they can be a part of making the decisions that matter.
Yeah. I mean, imagine this. You could have on your Instagram the different finalists or the different competitors, and you can go, okay, if you're listening to this, go to my Instagram, screenshot your favorite competitor and share it out in your Instagram story and tag me. That's how you vote. And that way you have all these people sharing your Instagram profile, or having them do a certain thing. You've got like I wouldn't have you do this, but maybe like a VA or something goes in and they start tabulating all the votes, and there we go. We've got a way to pick a winner. So,
well, that's so funny you mention that, because I know this guy, Adam, who'd be a great co-producer.
Yes.
He has interest in comedy and everything.
I'll be your Randy Jackson. That's what we got. Well, I think we've come up with some really solid ideas. I mean, this is something I'm interested in listening to for sure. And I feel like I might represent the type of person that you want listening to your show. So I'm interested. I feel good about it. I think that you could make some money. I think you can make an impact with a charity aspect. You can make an impact with funding some of these starving artists so that they can, live the dream a little bit longer. Maybe it springboards them into a bigger career. So I like it a lot. I think that you've got some good things cooking, and let's make sure we shout you out. Like, where do you hang out on social media? How do people get in touch with you? How do they check out your show? All the good things, Scott. So go ahead and take the mic, man.
Oh, hey, thanks, Adam. So anybody out there listening that's interested in stand-up comedy, it's right there with my name, my new website, scottscomedystuff.com. It's not fancy, but it works. And you'll find my books. You'll find my online comedy course. And if you get a chance to check out my podcast, Stand-Up Comedy, Your Host and MC, I've taken that one step farther, thanks to people like Adam. And I formed a membership site where you can see actual videos of these entertainers performing live on stage before they were famous. Now, some of them got famous while they were working for me, but if you want to see Paula Poundstone, Dana Carvey, Bob Saget on stage, and a bunch of others, The membership site is a great way to see actual videos of them performing. But anyway, and then on Clubhouse every Monday night at 6 o'clock, we talk about stand-up comedy and adding it to a podcast and the value there. So for any of you podcasters, be sure to join us and let's work together to lift up the world of podcasting with humor.
Outstanding. Scott Edwards. Everybody make sure that you go to scottscomedystuff.com and get plugged into his universe there. So if you guys are interested in doing a podcast audit just like the world famous Scott Edwards, then go ahead and sign up at www.podcastingbusiness.school. I appreciate you all for tuning in. I will send you out into the world wishing you health, happiness, and many downloads. We'll see you on the next episode.